I'm Dean Meminger. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. A 14-year-old is in custody after a shooting at a high school in Winder, Georgia. Authorities say the student at Appalachia High fatally shot 2 students and 2 teachers Wednesday. At least 9 other people were taken to the hospital with various injuries. Students describing the intense moments inside that school.
I did feel scared. I was definitely shaking, and emotions were high. We got in a corner, some girls started crying, and then I was like, calm down, and then the teacher, she was shaking and everything. I was like, no, it's gonna be okay.
President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were briefed on the shooting. Biden says he is in mourning and mourning the deaths of those killed, saying we cannot continue to accept this as normal. Harris called the shooting a senseless tragedy. On Truth Social, tragic event. The Biden administration is accusing Russia of influencing the 2024 presidential election. The Department of Justice says Russia is using state media to spread disinformation, using American influencers to spread propaganda. Federal authorities Wednesday announced criminal charges and sanctions as a result of the investigation. Those are your headlines. Now your weather on the ones.
Hey everybody, I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington. A couple of things stand out as we look at the big picture over the lower 48. Lots of heavy rainfall in an area of low pressure developing down in the Gulf of Mexico, and then dealing with extreme heat in the desert Southwest. And it doesn't look like that is going to go away anytime soon. So it's a tale of 2 different halves of the country. Out east, you've got some cooler weather, but scorching temperatures and record-breaking heat continues in the west, and more cool air for the deep south is ahead. We'll talk about that in your forecast coming up.
My heart hurts for these kids. My heart hurts for our community. But I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county.
Tragedy in a small town in Georgia. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dean Meminger. At least 4 people are dead, including 2 students and 2 teachers, after a shooter opens fire at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia. The town is located roughly 45 miles from Atlanta. Authorities identified the alleged shooter as 14-year-old Colt Gray, who is a student at the high school. The teen will be charged as an adult. Spectrum's Carla Redditt joins us with what we know so far.
So this is a parent's worst nightmare, is to hear about a shooting at their child's school.
A suspect is in custody following a shooting at a high school in Winder, Georgia. The Barrow County Sheriff's Office confirmed there were multiple casualties.
This is going to take multiple days for us to get answers as to what happened and why this happened.
Heavy law enforcement presence was seen at Appalachia High School Wednesday, along with several ambulances going to and from the school. Video taken from a nearby neighborhood showed a fleet of law enforcement vehicles racing towards the high school. Another showed a long line of cars thought to be of parents parked in traffic headed towards the school. Others rushed towards the campus on foot.
I've walked almost 2.5 miles to get to the school.
Staff and students were ushered to the football field before being reunified with their parents. Some formed a prayer circle in an attempt to comfort each other, a somber moment in a new school year that only began a month ago. In a statement, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp urged all Georgians to join my family in praying for the safety of those in our classrooms.
What do we know about the victims here, and what can you tell us about the suspected shooter?
What do you say, like $25, $30 a line?
Well, Dean, police held a press conference just hours ago and confirmed 4 people are dead, 2 students and 2 teachers. They also said the suspect, who is in custody, is a 14-year-old student of the high school. Authorities confirm the teenager will be charged with murder and tried as an adult. Officials have yet to determine a motive. Dean?
And Carla, we saw the video of law enforcement racing toward the scene. First responders are being praised for their swift response, but the investigation is just beginning.
It certainly is. Multiple interviews have already been conducted with students, faculty members, and other witnesses, and those will continue in the coming days. We learned several agencies are assisting in this investigation, including local, state, and federal law enforcement. Authorities are still looking into how the Bureau of Investigation says their priority is to gather all the facts and make sure they are accurate. Dean?
All right, Carla Redditt, thank you for your time. And continuing our coverage now, we want to bring in Bobby Chacon. He is a former FBI special agent and lawyer. And Bobby, you have years of experience in these sort of criminal investigations. What is likely happening right now with the shooting suspect?
Well, he's probably back in the sheriff's station. He's probably been read his rights. There are some state laws usually that kick in for people under 18. Usually need a parent or guardian in place there present before an interrogation. I don't know the specific Georgia laws on the federal level. If we ever wanted to question a person under 18, we needed a parent or guardian present. So they're looking at him. They're asking him questions, and they're determining, why he did this. There's probably a separate team team that usually comes in incidents like this and does a deep dive really quickly on his social media. The one thing you want to find out right now is if he worked in concert with anyone. Are there like-minded individuals he was discussing doing this with? And do they pose a threat as well? You want to make sure you've contained the event to this particular incident.
And now it's early in this investigation, but what's your take on how law enforcement responded on the national level and the local level there?
I think it looks pretty good. It looks, unlike we saw in Uvalde, Texas last year, it looks like they went right in. They went right towards the threat. I mean, it's early, and I'm not seeing too much reporting on it, but it looks like they did that. They went right towards the threat. They took him into custody quickly. And I know it's tragic that people lost their lives, but in these situations, oftentimes there could be a much greater loss on scene fairly quickly. And so it looks like both from a local and a federal response time, it looks like it was done by the book.
And, this is another case of teenagers dying, and in this case, it looks at this point like another teenager pulled the trigger. Broadly speaking, does the FBI have a role in trying to prevent these sort of shootings? We know local law enforcement, they try, but what about on the federal level?
Well, I think this is the conversation that needs to happen nationally, right? I mean, yes, we have resources that can be put into a prevention paradigm, a model. We wouldn't be able to do it alone. We need mental health professionals at the school level, at the county, state levels to be part of that. Teachers need to be part of that. Local law enforcement needs to be part of that. All of this prevention is a very, very tightrope to walk when you're talking about people's rights of free for difficult periods in their lives and often say things they don't mean. There's a lot more threats that happen that people don't realize are, not real threats. And so, you don't want to overplay something, but you don't want to underplay it. You don't want to do a boy who cried wolf and then the person turns out to be a real threat. So it's a really difficult area to prevent. But I think that it needs to be a coordinated approach between both county, state, and federal authorities and experts in this area that can kind of monitor potential threats and hopefully intercede before an incident like this happens.
All right, former special agent for the FBI, Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thanks for having me.
Our coverage of the tragic school shooting in Georgia continues. How top political leaders are reacting. Coming up on Spectrum News.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable. It's delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
For their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/therightseat.
Some cool fall-like air has taken over the east coast of the U.S. with temperatures in the 70s on Wednesday from D.C. to New York City, 80s across the upper Midwest. And then you get to the big story across the country, extreme heat. Phoenix with another day of 100-degree heat. That is the 101st day in a row that Phoenix, Arizona has hit 100 degrees, and they're not just getting to 100, 109, 110. Over the next couple of days, more heat will be building. Even cities like LA all the way through the weekend. While heavy rainfall across the deep south and the southeast will also be on the docket for the next several days as an area of low pressure, not tropical at this point, continues to impact them, and another developing area of low pressure and cold front with severe weather chances all the way through the late night and overnight hours on Wednesday into early Thursday. Just a level 1 risk, but a risk that folks there are going to take very seriously. And severe weather chances start to go by the boards. I don't think we're going to have much to deal with as far as severe weather goes over the next few days as things open up across the upper Midwest and Midwest, while still more heavy rain plagues Texas, Louisiana, the Gulf Coast of Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi through Thursday and Friday. You notice the progression of that cold front through the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region on Thursday and into Friday, and that's going to lead to, yes, some more rain chances for the east. Continues from the desert Southwest all the way up into the Pacific Northwest. That's how far this heat has traveled, and it looks like another 100-degree day in Phoenix on Thursday, near 100 in LA. But there is some relief for the West Coast. We'll also talk about the tropics too and how busy it looks. But is it? We'll talk about that in 10 minutes.
The political world is reacting to the deadly school shooting in Georgia that killed 2 students and 2 teachers. The response is coming from the White House and from the campaign trail. Our national reporter Evan Koslov has more from the Washington Bureau.
This is not normal. This is not normal.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says enough is enough as the red flag laws and other gun restrictions following the latest school shooting. President Biden releasing a statement saying in part, students across the country are learning how to duck and cover instead of how to read and write. We cannot continue to accept this as normal.
We continue to call on Congress to do something. To do something.
This is just a senseless tragedy.
Vice President Kamala Harris also responding to the shooting from a campaign event in New Hampshire, calling it senseless and outrageous.
We have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all. You know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
Former President Trump also responding on social media, writing in part, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia." Harris was in New Hampshire to unveil a new proposal to boost tax incentives for small businesses, which would increase the deduction for startup expenses from
Opportunity economy is one where everyone can compete and have a real chance to succeed.
All this an effort to reshape perceptions, as polls show that voters trust former President Donald Trump over Harris when it comes to handling the economy.
Trump cash versus Kamala crash.
On social media, Trump blasting Harris's economic plans.
I've always said that people vote with their stomach, and food is now at an all-time high. We've never seen anything like it.
And Evan Kosloff joins us now. And Evan, we're also following another big story out of the White House. The Biden administration is accusing Russia of trying to interfere in the election yet again this year and unveiled a series of actions to try and stop it. What can you tell us about this?
Right, so the White House is accusing Russia of a sophisticated influence campaign, essentially creating fake news sites or influencers to spread Russian propaganda. Includes by creating fake news sites resembling legitimate media outlets. Now the Biden administration is firing back with a series of actions announced at a meeting of an election threats task force that includes new charges against 2 Russian nationals, new sanctions against 10 people and entities, and the seizure of 32 internet domains. All of this resembles previous efforts by Russia in past elections, all to harness social media to create divisive messages online. Dean, another reminder that we all need to stop and ask ourselves who made a post before we click share.
All right, Evan Kosloff in Washington, thank you so much. A shakeup in the leadership of Ukraine as the country's war with Russia reaches a critical juncture. Washington reporter Kevin Fry is monitoring the latest for us.
Russia stepping up its aerial assault on Ukraine as Ukrainian President.
The autumn will be extremely important for Ukraine, and our state institutions must be set up so that Ukraine achieves all the results we need, all of us.
The government overhaul comes as experts say the war is reaching a turning point. Russia killing dozens of Ukrainians in new missile strikes across the country, while Ukraine makes inroads into Russian territory, claiming land that could become a bargaining chip for Ukraine down the road.
Zelensky is, in part trying to bring in new blood, new ideas on how to prosecute this war.
Time is of the essence for Zelensky. With the U.S. election now just 2 months away, he faces the prospect of a new administration in Washington that could impact the flow of aid from overseas.
If Trump wins, the U.S. would probably not be as supportive of the Ukrainian side. J.D. Vance said he doesn't care about what happens in Ukraine. So I think there's another
month for the United Nations General Assembly, at which time he is slated to unveil what is being dubbed a victory plan on how Kyiv hopes to win the conflict. In Washington, Kevin Fry, Spectrum News.
A new NFL season kicks off this week. Coming up on Spectrum News, we'll talk about the new and returning star athletes hoping to leave their mark on the field. And as we head to a break, here are your closing numbers from Wall Street.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't switch to Spectrum Enterprise.
Well, you said our services meet some of your technology needs.
But not all.
Well, maybe you have too many.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Look, I'm switching to Spectrum Enterprise because they'll be a true partner, and I can't run this network without one.
I think you can.
Our clients do it all the time.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Every time he sees him, my advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
A lot was made out of the 2024 hurricane season. It was supposed to be one for the record books, way above average numbers. But as we enter the busiest time of hurricane season, September, by all measures, the busiest portion of the Atlantic hurricane season, it's whisper quiet out there. And I know there looks to be some activity brewing, but none of these areas have a very high chance over the next 7 days to become our next organized tropical system. Low chances everywhere you look. In the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, way out in the Atlantic, and it's this area in the Atlantic that you normally find storms that develop pretty easily, but that's just not the case at this point. So we still watch and we still wait. There's still time in the hurricane season for things to get busy, but over the next 7 days, it looks like it's fairly quiet. Look at the departure from normal. These are above average temperatures, double-digit above average numbers. Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Boise, Idaho. LA will be approaching next several days while things get a little bit cooler down in the deep south, over on the East Coast. Fall-like, dare I say, temperatures? Yeah, and I think so, as another cold front moves in, and thankfully, no severe weather threat with this next front that'll be moving in. Ahead of the front, Dallas, Memphis in the 80s on Friday, but places in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, places in Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana seeing some much cooler conditions. And then you get into Saturday and find even cooler numbers starting to move into the Great Lakes region from Ohio all the way down to Kentucky into the upper Midwest, while we are just baking again. 96 in Boise, 108 in Phoenix, almost 100 degrees in LA. But there is some heat relief on the way out west. As the upper level wind pattern starts to flatten out west, heat will subside a bit, and then cooler air starts to arrive in the Great Lakes and the East Coast as seen Sunday and into next week while more heat continues. And the rain chances will continue as well, but thankfully, like we said, that severe weather potential not really in the cards. More flooding rains across the deep south and the Gulf Coast, but as this next front pushes in, you'll get a relief from all of that heavy rainfall and more dry air as we start the weekend off Saturday and into Sunday across the west. More heat for them for the weekend too.
If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. At least 4 people are dead after a shooting at a high school in Winder, Georgia, Wednesday. 9 other people were taken to the hospital with injuries. Police say the 14-year-old shooter is in custody. President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are to issue a ban on assault weapons. Harris calling the shooting a senseless tragedy. Donald Trump also addressing the shooting. The former president posting a statement on Truth Social, writing, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones affected by this tragic event." That's what you need to know. Rachel Gunn, the Australian Olympic break dancer who went viral for her bad performance at the Paris Games, has apologized to the breaking community for the backlash she brought to herself and to the competition. Now, she made the apology on the Australian show, The Project. Gunn did not register a single point across her Olympic battles against other breakers, losing 18-0 in all 3 rounds. The NFL season begins this week. A primetime matchup Thursday between 2 heavyweight rivals kicks things off, and there are also some changes in the rules to keep in mind this season. Mary Lee Melendez joins for it. Mary Lee, what's in store this season?
Well, Dean, first comes college, then the NFL. It is great to have football back. This NFL season, it kicks off on Thursday night with a huge AFC showdown. The reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Here's a look at some of those big games on tap. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers are in Brazil Friday. The first time since 1970 the NFL has had a Friday night game in Week 1. The bulk of the games will be on Sunday, and then Monday night will be Aaron Rodgers' return with the New York Jets versus the San Francisco 49ers. There's also a lot of hype for the rookie quarterbacks this season. If you saw the NFL draft or you watched the Bears during Hard Knocks, you know all eyes are on Caleb Williams, the #1 draft pick out of USC. This could be the year of the rookie. The Washington Commanders have named #2 pick Jaden Daniels the starter after his Heisman winning season at LSU. And number 12 pick Bo Nix had a stellar preseason, earning the starting spot for the Denver Broncos. And it's going to be a lot of new faces this season, Dean, so excited to see what they do.
All right, and Mary Lee, how about the game itself? Tell us about the major changes this season.
Now, big changes to kick off the season to the kickoffs. The NFL is overhauling kickoffs to try and get more return, so to speak. This new format is using elements of rules from the XFL. It moves all the players except for the kicker to the receiving team's end of the field. The kickoff is more like a play from scrimmage than the traditional kickoff. The NFL says of the nearly 300 kickoffs this preseason, 70.5% were returned. That's up from 50. It could mean a lot more action during kickoffs this season. Dean?
All right, ready for some football, Mary Lee Melendez, for our Beyond the Sport. Thanks so much. A lot going on. All right, thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Dean Meminger. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your... It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories, connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back.
To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels,
that's a love we can all fight for.
I'm Jenna Enoch. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Another school shooting gripping a community in Georgia this morning. A 14-year-old is charged in the deaths of 4 people at a high school outside of Atlanta, Georgia. The shooting left 2 students and 2 teachers dead and at least 9 others injured. Police say the suspected shooter is in custody and will be tried as an adult. Authorities say the teen used an AR-style weapon but did not say how he got the gun. As the country tries to make sense of this horrific act, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were briefed and spoke on the tragedy. President Biden saying he is, quote, mourning the deaths of those killed, while Harris called the shooting, quote, a senseless tragedy. Former President Donald Trump took to Truth Social, saying, quote, our hearts are with the victims and loved ones affected by this tragic event. The campaign team for Vice President Kamala Harris says it has agreed to the terms of next Trump. In a letter to ABC on Wednesday, the Harris campaign said it accepted the terms, which include muted mics when it's not Harris or Trump's turn to speak, something the Harris camp tried to change. The 2 presidential nominees will face off next Tuesday, September 10th in Philadelphia. Of course, Spectrum News will have all of the coverage of that debate. Those are your headlines. Now, here's your weather on the ones.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter. More record-breaking heat along the West Coast as we get going throughout the day today. 91 in Seattle will be in the triple digits across Portland, Oregon. Later today, 114 in Phoenix, pushing 100 in Los Angeles. We are warming up a bit across the Central Plains as well, but still enjoying a nice taste of fall up into the northeast. However, down in the Gulf, we're dealing with more rainfall that's going to lead to some flooding along the Louisiana and Mississippi coast. I'll talk about how much more additional rainfall we'll see coming up in 10 minutes on your Weather on the Ones.
Thank you for joining us on Spectrum News. I'm Jenna Enoch. Details are coming to light following a deadly school shooting in Winder, Georgia. 2 students and 2 teachers are dead. At least 9 others were injured. Police say the shooting took place just after 9 a.m. Wednesday morning at Appalachia High School. It's about 45 miles northeast of Atlanta. Authorities identified the shooter as 14-year-old Colt Gray, who used an AR-style weapon but did not say how he obtained that gun. Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith says his heart hurts for the children and community.
Hate is not going to prevail in our county, and hate's not going to prevail in our state. And pure evil did what happened today. That's all I can tell you.
Our Jamila Muhammad begins our team.
Chaos and concern Wednesday morning at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia. Police have identified the victims of the deadly massacre as 2 14-year-old students and 2 teachers. Georgia authorities note that quick thinking by teachers and students prevented the tragedy from being even worse.
I want to recognize them as heroes because they are.
This video taken from a nearby neighborhood. Inside the school, 4 dead and at least 9 others left injured.
I heard screaming and everything. At first, I thought it was like someone just like playing around in the hallways.
I didn't know it was real, and like I heard the sirens and everything, and like towards the end of it, like I heard screaming.
Students inside the school trying to grasp what was happening as the chaos erupted. Law enforcement says the shooter used an AR-15 style rifle. Many students calling for help. One mother was at work when she received a flurry of text messages from her son. School shooting, right? Please, I'm not joking. Parents ran towards the campus. Others gridlocked in a long line of cars outside the school.
I've walked almost 2.5 miles to get to the school. So this is a parent's worst nightmare, is to hear about a shooting at their child's school.
The 8 students and 1 teacher who were wounded in the shooting remain hospitalized, but are all expected to recover. Some formed a prayer circle in an attempt to comfort one another.
Hate will not prevail in this county.
The 14-year-old suspected shooter has been charged as an adult. Jamila Muhammad, Spectrum News.
Presidential nominees Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both offered their reaction to Wednesday's deadly school shooting. Spectrum's national reporter Angie Gonzalez continues our team coverage this morning with more on the issue of gun violence this election.
Vice President Kamala Harris spoke briefly about the fatal shooting at Appalachia High School in New Hampshire. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. Last year, President Joe Biden tapped Harris to lead a new federal office on gun violence prevention with the goal of spurring new executive and legislative action to address gun violence in America. Congress, however, has been unable to pass any additional laws since President Joe Biden signed the bipartisan Safer Communities Act in 2022. David Hogg survived the Parkland school shooting in 2018.
We have made progress on this. Over 800 high-risk individuals have been stopped from buying guns like the AR-15 since Uvalde because of the passage of that law. We have so much more work to do.
Gun safety is largely flying under the radar this election cycle, with the economy and immigration topping voters' concerns. At the DNC last, survivors and family members impacted by gun violence to share their stories. The issue also resurfaced following the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in July. The former president, who was endorsed by the National Rifle Association in May, offered his condolences to the victims in Georgia in a social media post and was asked about it during a Fox News town town hall Wednesday night.
Well, it's a sick and angry world for a lot of reasons, and we're going to make it better.
President Joe Biden fired off several social media posts following the shooting, and one calling directly on Republicans in Congress to work with him and other Democratic lawmakers on passing common sense gun safety legislation. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
New details this morning. The campaign team for Vice President Kamala Harris says it has agreed to the terms of next week's presidential debate on ABC. In a letter to ABC on Wednesday, the Harris campaign said it accepted the terms to avoid Trump pulling out of the debate. The Harris campaign also agreed to muted mics when it's not Harris or Trump's turn to speak, but said in the letter muting the mics would put Harris at a disadvantage. The two presidential nominees will face off next Tuesday, September 10th, in Philadelphia. Spectrum News will have comprehensive coverage and analysis of the debate next week. Jury selection begins today in Hunter Biden's federal tax trial, just months after his conviction of gun charges in a separate case. Prosecutors say Hunter Biden participated in a 4-year scheme to avoid paying $1.4 million in taxes. The defense says it was during the time when the president's son had an active addiction that affected his judgment to demonstrate the intent to commit the crimes. Potential jurors are expected to be asked about their own family and personal history, any tax issues, and past dealings with the IRS. Ahead of a major overhaul of the Ukrainian government, 6 cabinet ministers have resigned, sending handwritten notes to Parliament that offered little explanation for their decisions. Among those stepping down is Dmitry Kuleba, the country's foreign minister. With close ties to Western leaders, the 43-year-old joins 5 other ministers who have stepped down. Well, at a meeting Wednesday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said his government needed new energy in various areas, including diplomacy. A coastal California city literally shifting beneath residents' feet, and why they're saying the government has left them to fend for themselves. The full story is coming up on Spectrum News.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and connected to what matters most to you.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on diabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with you on this Thursday. Unsettled weather pattern not going anywhere across the Gulf Coast as we head into the end of this week. We have flash flood watches in effect from Mississippi into Louisiana, parts of the Texas coast where we've already seen several inches of rain, and we're going to be adding to those rainfall totals, unfortunately. And as a result of that, we do have a moderate risk for excessive rainfall across southeastern Louisiana, parts of the Mississippi coast. And we're going to see that slight risk start to work its way eastward as we get into the day on Friday across Alabama, parts of Georgia, the Florida Panhandle, and still southeastern Louisiana still dealing with that risk for flooding as we head into the day on Friday. Relief, though, associated with this cold front that's going to eventually work its way further eastward. This should help push some of that moisture and the humidity levels further south, which will be a good sign. Will dry out and actually might feel pretty comfortable for the most part across eastern Texas and Louisiana compared to where we've been the past several days. More relief on the way as the front inches eastward as we head into the day on Sunday, and eventually into Monday should start to feel a lot better and see those conditions improve significantly along the Gulf Coast. So as we get into the near term, though, we are going to be dealing with heavy rain for most of the day across Louisiana into Mississippi for a good clip of the day today and into our Friday. Right around lunchtime, we're seeing more heavy rainfall starting to work its way further eastward into Alabama, parts of Georgia, into the Florida Panhandle, and eventually, once we get into the weekend, we'll start to see this weather pattern breaking down just a bit with that cold front that I mentioned before. But still, Saturday morning, dealing with some heavy rain, which could impact some of those college football games ongoing all across the southeast. So keep that in mind if you're making plans to head out there. But the New Orleans region and even into parts of the Florida Panhandle, we could see some rainfall totals over 5 inches or so by the time we get towards the end of the weekend. However, out west, we are dealing with some potential record-breaking temperatures, and I'll have a look at that, and when we'll see some relief coming up in 10 minutes on your Weather on the Ones.
If you're just joining us or you're heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. At least 4 people are dead after a shooting at a high school in Georgia. 9 additional people were taken to hospitals yesterday morning. Police say the 14-year-old shooter used an AR-style weapon and is being charged as an adult. President Joe Biden releasing a statement saying, quote, "Jill and I are mourning the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence and thinking of all of the survivors whose Vice President Kamala Harris also spoke on the shooting, calling it, quote, a senseless tragedy." Former President Donald Trump also releasing a statement on his social media platform, Truth Social, saying, quote, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster," end quote. And that's what you need to know this morning. California Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency in Rancho Palos Verdes, a coastal city just south of Los Angeles, where some estimates say the land is shifting at a rate of up to 1 foot per week. Well, despite the governor's declaration, some of the city's residents are feeling abandoned and angry, saying they've had to set up their own gas and power in the wake of utility shutoffs. Our Joe Kwan is in California with more.
The everyday sounds of living in the Portuguese Bend neighborhood since 2019, but the first sound started 5 months ago.
Our large tiles started to crack in real time.
It was because the land was moving. A month ago, shifting land is the reason the gas company shut the gas off. And just this week, the power got cut because of safety concerns.
It was like a strange saga running all over again.
Sheridan and others have done what they've had to keep life going without utilities and without what she feels is real help from the city, state, or anyone.
It's behooving. I don't understand why they're not here.
The utilities have set up these booths in the neighborhood, but Sheridan says
their help was water and a bag of honey roasted peanuts.
On Tuesday, the governor declared a state of emergency for Rancho Palos Verdes. It instructs state agencies to provide equipment and aid to local entities. But Sheridan says the neighborhood has been innovative with their fixes.
I might have to knee it. Here we go.
She says the governor, congresspeople, and others should be here. Pete Gastiger has lived in this home in the neighborhood for almost 15 years, built it from the ground up.
There are no problems in the house, no cracks, nothing. It's perfect.
But with no utilities, his family has been forced into this situation.
The emergency started when the utilities decided to abandon us.
He says only a few homes have had major damage like this one just a few blocks away due to land movement. So he says shutting gas and power off for all homes was unnecessary.
I'm pretty angry and upset, and we have a lot of money tied up into this property.
The homeowner says the only option is to lean on themselves for help.
The Utilities Commission is not doing anything. The governor's now been down here.
He says they feel abandoned. Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor John Cruikshank says
they shouldn't feel abandoned, at least by their city and at least by their fellow residents. In an emergency, you can see that the state cares as well.
Though it's been about a month since the city first asked the state for the declaration.
Better late than never. We're certainly happy that the governor's done that.
Meanwhile, the mayor has been reaching out to private companies such as Tesla to help the area get off the grid.
They've already put together some plans for us, and we'll be talking to our city about that and other companies as well.
Until there are real solutions in place, Sheridan is just waiting for the next chapter of this saga.
If water should go, you know, it may as well be some third world country.
A community feeling abandoned as the land keeps moving.
Jo Kwan, Spectrum News.
The Columbus Blue Jackets and Calgary Flames held a vigil outside their arenas last night in honor of late NHL player Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. Well, the two were tragically killed last week after being hit by an alleged drunk driver while riding bikes near their home in New Jersey. Friends, family members, teammates, and past memories of the brothers. The vigils mark the beginning of a 13-day observance for fans to visit a memorial and pay their respects. Just ahead on Spectrum News, as the U.S. Open heads into its semifinal round, we'll take you in for a closer look at one small family business that's trying to capitalize on all this attention.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't switch to Spectrum Enterprise.
Well, you said our services meet some of your technology needs.
But not all.
Well, maybe you have too many.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Look, I'm switching to Spectrum Enterprise because they'll be a true partner, and I can't run this network without one.
I think you can.
Our clients do it all the time.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter. More dangerous heat in store for us out. It continues to hold steady as we close out the work and school week. It's been very hot across this part of the country, and today and tomorrow we have the potential for some record-breaking temperatures over the course of the afternoon hours. Down towards Florida, we have some heat advisories in place, south and central part of the state, as temperatures start to feel like the triple digits, but we're going to focus on the western half of the U.S. where we have some heat advisories from Idaho up towards Washington and Oregon through California, even some excessive heat warnings across the desert southwest, Arizona into southern Nevada and California, and even up towards Oregon, also under those excessive heat warnings, where we're going to be dealing with the potential for some record high temperatures in a place like Portland, where we're going to get around 101 later today, 112 in Phoenix, so 97 degrees across Los Angeles. Find ways to stay cool. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water if you do have to be outside for an extended period of time. Watch what happens today, though, as we get into the afternoon. Kansas City, St. Louis going to be in the low 90s, but a front's going to sweep across the area later today, which should drop our temperatures from the low 90s all the way down to the upper 70s and the low 80s in the Great Lakes, Minneapolis into Chicago. Going to be feeling nice and comfortable as we head into our Friday and even into our weekend, as temperatures are expected to be well below the average for this time of year. Take a look at all the blue on the map. Temperatures are going to be about 5 to 10 degrees below the average from Houston all the way up through Chicago into New York. Nice and comfortable with lowering humidity values as well. However, out west, not the case for us. We're going to be 10 to 15 degrees above the average from Boise into Denver and Los Angeles as we head into the weekend into early next week. So make sure you're finding ways to stay cool as we head into this upcoming weekend and into next week as well, because the weather pattern looks to hold steady across the northern plains and to the mountains as well, with above average temperatures looking likely for the second week of September. Keeping that cooler weather pattern across the south and southeast, though, which is going to feel pretty nice as we get closer to the official start of fall. However, down in the tropics, though, we're starting to see some activity out there, but we are watching force systems, all with low odds for development systems. We're going to continue to watch those very closely, but we're not expecting any development for at least the next 7 days out of any of those systems. But as we get close to the climatological peak in hurricane season, September 10th, we're going to start to see that activity winding down as we get towards the end of November, of course, where hurricane season comes to an end. And so far, just 5 named systems. The next name on the list is going to be Francine.
Shares in discount retailer Dollar Tree falling by 20% yesterday after the company announced it would dramatically cut its full-year forecast. Another discount store, Dollar General, also reported falling customer traffic, citing a weaker job market and inflation that's keeping low-income customers away. Analysis says that the discount stores are being outmatched by other large retailers like Walmart and Target. Happening now, the U.S. Open is attracting hundreds of thousands of tennis fans from all across the country and all around the world. And every year, New Yorkers who are looking for a part-time gig get hired to work this global, star-studded event. Spectrum's Norlane Kawaja caught up with one small business that's getting a big boost from the tournament.
Tennis fans at the U.S. Open line up to get served a healthy option. Smoothies, acai bowls, and salads.
It's delicious looking.
Dawn Kelly,
so here in the front,
and Jay Duncan are the mother-daughter duo behind the Nourish Spot. Their Southeast Jamaica-based business is back for a third year at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, a place they enjoyed as a family before they profited from it.
As a single mom, I used to bring my children here for Kids Day every year. So for us to have a full circle moment and turn around and be a concession, tell you how wonderful that is.
I'm a lover of tennis, so I love when I get to sneak away for a little bit on break and go catch a match or something.
Harlem-born, Queens-raised Kelly opened the Nourish Spot about 7 years ago after she found out she was pre-diabetic. The mission, fresh ingredients with belief that food is medicine. Their seasonal jobs here at the U.S. Open strengthens their small business.
It's challenging to make ends meet every single day. It's challenging to pay all the different salaries and the taxes and the bills that you have to pay. The opportunity to make money is huge.
They are just two of the more than 3,500 seasonal workers from the community hired by the United States Tennis Association. The head of the Queens Chamber of Commerce, Tom Gretsch, says this annual event brings in big money to Queens and the city at large.
The local buys, the local purchases, hotels and so on,
Some of the hotels in Queens are not the direction of the issue, but they do stay in Manhattan and other places. But it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
And the future of the area is bright, with development of the city's first ever soccer stadium underway. There's also a controversial proposal by Mets owner and billionaire Stephen Cohen to bring a casino to the area around Citi Field. That does have opposition, but Gretsch says he hopes the state moves forward here, granting one of up to 3 casino licenses downstate. Roughly a dozen proposals are expected.
That's going to become a national mecca for sports.
This year, the USTA says it's hoping to hit 1 million visitors over the 3-week period.
So many different people from all walks of life, from all countries around the world, are tasting the Nourish Spots Fair. I mean, how extra is that?
Extra restaurants are what she wants. The Nourish Spot opened a second location in Bedford-Stuyvesant earlier this year. And while they have to increase the Nourish Spot's footprint there too.
We're looking to pop up in airports near you and serve healthy fare because we know that travelers need premium, healthy options as they travel the globe.
Norlane Khawaja, Spectrum News.
A really good way for local businesses to get some exposure and hopefully grow in the future. I'm Jenna Enoch. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill News, be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who...
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now, we've got something to say.
Save it. It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault.
Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.